That, I agree, is a very dramatic announcement. Good morning, everyone. This is Rezolute's introduction to the OIS community. So I'd like a moment to thank the OIS co-chairs, Sophie, Jay, Mark, and Firas. Firas, I noticed that Resolute is missing from your slide deck, so I guess it's probably in the introduction part. That's Thanks so much. Maybe next time. Anyway, I'm here to talk about the program that we have, which is RZ402, an oral medication for diabetic macular edema, currently in clinical development. It's a plasma kallikrein inhibitor. Let's see this. Okay. Rezolute is a publicly traded company, so I'm going to be making some forward-looking statements. All companies are made of people are what makes a company. So I have some nice colleagues in the company who have deep experience in the clinical development space. And more importantly, they're committed to making a difference in patients' lives. So we currently have two programs. We have one which is focused, RZ358, which is focused on congenital hyperinsulinism, which is an ultra-orphan indication. It is a potential first-in-class therapy. And also has added potential expansion indications that may likely come by. But what I'm talking to you about is the RZ402 program, which is focused on diabetic macular edema, again, an oral plasma kallikrein inhibitor, and with possibilities for expansion into diabetic retinopathy and other indications. We've talked since the morning in regards to the unmet needs in diabetic macular edema. We all know that anti-VEGFs currently remain the standard of care for treatment. But we also know the fact that there are multiple patients, almost 50% of the patients, who don't tend to do well with anti-VEGFs, either right away or in time. Also, getting an injection in the eye is a painful process. So there is a lot of undertreatment that goes on in these patients. So treatment burden is one of the terms that we keep throwing around all the time. Importantly, in regards to randomized clinical studies, which we compare with real-world data, there is a big challenge in the fact that there are fewer anti-VEGF injections given to patients. And secondly, patients also apparently show worse visual outcomes in real-world practice. And so these are some of the things that we need to note as we move forwards with the programs that we have. So RZ402 is a PKI, as I said, plasma kallikrein inhibitor, which is focused on the kallikrein kinin system and is primarily focused on vascular leakage. It has potent target inhibition in rat, monkey, and human plasma. In the preclinical studies, we've seen that it suppresses vascular leakage to almost up to 90%. We have also completed animal toxicology studies. From a clinical and regulatory perspective, we currently are in phase 1B studies, a multiple ascending dose study, which was initiated in the third quarter of this year, likely to get completed sometime soon. And we are looking at starting the phase 2A proof of concept study sometime next year. Again, to highlight, this is a once daily dose of the medication. Also, importantly, there is a potential for this drug to be preventative in diabetic macular edema. So there's a potential for earlier intervention in patients, and also with expanded indications that are likely to come by. So in animal data, we actually did two important studies with the results shown here. We dosed in models where we dosed after the onset of DME, as we see on the left, and we also dosed at the onset of DME with ANG to induce DME. And so what we found, interestingly, was not in patients, but in animal models, where RZ402 was dosed after the onset of DME, we saw almost 80% or more than 80% of reduction in vascular leakage. While in animal models where it was dosed at the time of DME, attenuation of vascular leakage was almost 90%. So what we are looking here is a significant reduction in potential macular edema as we go into patient studies. The phase 1A study is currently being done. We have, it was done a single center, first in human study, randomized double-blind placebo control. We had 3 sequential cohorts of 25, 100, and 250 milligrams. Each cohort consists of 10 subjects, healthy volunteers, with 8 subjects who received the active dose with 2 placebos, a total of 30 participants. We managed to see these patients for 7 days in the clinic after the single dose was given, and we had subsequently 2 follow-up visits. We're obviously looking at safety and tolerability of the oral administration and also trying to find out the PK profile of the oral administration of the drug. The study was completed earlier this year. In terms of data, obviously from a safety perspective, we did not have any adverse drug reactions. We had no serious adverse events in this study. 13 subjects did have some AEs, but most of them were procedure related. So ECG electrode irritation was one of the common things that patients complained of. There were specifically only 3 AEs related to the drug, which is diarrhea, nausea, and headache, which is pretty much likely to be common in any oral medication. There were significantly no grade 2 or 3 AEs or SAEs in the study. Importantly, from an oral medication perspective, there was no effect on blood pressure or heart rate in these subjects. Again, from the point of view of what we keep hearing in animals, in human studies these days with inflammation and vasculitis, we did not see any patients with intraocular inflammation or vasculitis. Again, that is an important part to be taken care of, especially from a regulatory perspective. And the lab studies were pretty much unremarkable. The pharmacokinetics part, dose-dependent increase was seen in systemic levels. We had target active concentrations that achieved at lower than anticipated doses. And from all the data that we had, it looks like there is a feasibility of once a day oral dosing of this drug, which will give a good steady state target coverage. And also there's a large safety margin in regards to this drug. So in conclusion, kallikrein-kinin system is, as we know, up-activated in diabetic retinopathy and DME, and definitely presents a novel pathophysiologic target in patients. Several kallikrein inhibitors are in development, and we definitely know that this is a validated target to move ahead with. Importantly, from our sake, from Rezolute's perspective, oral delivery does offer special considerations, if I may say so. One of the facts is we'll definitely reduce patient burden, but also there's a potential for earlier and more convenient treatment in patients, and likely more drug bioavailability at the vascular site of action. We are currently in phase 1B study, multiple ascending dose, that is likely to, like I said earlier, end soon. And we are hoping to start a phase 2 study second half of next year. Thank you so much.